No, I just didn't do this one on Periscope.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Happy Monday. It's 2 weeks out from the draft. So They're getting interesting, of course, as they always do. Key, just not overthink things. I already got a lot of positions that I'm very happy about. Numbers in my favor all over the place. We just got to kind of continue to add where we see value as we kind of flesh in the picture, paint the picture as we get approach draft weekend here. But before getting too far into this, it's worth mentioning the folks that power our podcast, BetSperts, as you see on Andy's lovely sweatshirt there. They're hiring.
Good call. I don't know if I would have remembered that. Yes, we are definitely.
I retweeted it. Andy tweeted about it today. They continue to grow. I think this summer, as we work our way towards football season, is going to be a period of growth for the Spurts. And they are looking for people who are interested in working in the gaming, gambling space. And if that fits your description, give those options a look.
Yeah, I retweeted it. Maybe I'll pin it like on the Deep Dive account or something. But it is somebody to handle, social media manager / technical producer, somebody who can produce some video, somebody who can edit some video, someone who can take some of that edited video and work it into a social media branding plan. So this is a full-time ass position. This person's probably going to make more than me. This is a very important position. And so if you're interested in that, if you can't find the details, reach out to me. I'll get you the details. It will be posted on Indeed and other job sites. But or if you just know somebody who's looking into getting into the gambling industry that has that skill set, obviously send them our way. It would be more than happy to talk to some people. We're definitely excited to add someone smart and you can't in hiring. You can't say age, I'm looking for someone young or old, but they have to be good at social media. So probably someone younger than me, because I don't understand how to make Instagram work. I can't make ours look cool like other people's. So hopefully we find the perfect person, and maybe it's you, listener. Yeah,
this is a job that didn't exist when we came out of college, man. This wasn't a thing. So
your job's to tweet. That's what it is.
It's incredible, man. What a world. Let's talk about the draft and some of the developments here real quick off the top before we get into today's evergreen topic, which has to do with markets as well. I think there is a tendency to overreact both positively and negatively to what you're seeing in the market. And there are a couple of things with the draft market in particular I think are worth kind of keeping front of your mind. That we've been stumping hard, mostly just because Mac Jones 3rd overall and trading up all those assets didn't make sense to me. We've been stumping hard that it's not going to be Mac at 3. And I'm exposed pretty aggressively at this point that it is going to be Fields. And if it's Lance, then tough shit for me, I guess. But it was rewarding late last week to see the market really shift and to really.
I mean, don't you have it both ways? You have some Fields 3rd, but you also have some Mac over 3.5. So
that's way smaller though. So much smaller.
Okay, I tried to balance it a little because I feel
there was nowhere to bet at that much though. No one had limits up when that prop was up.
The 3.5.
I could only find it for $100 on Bookmaker, I think.
There was a couple places eventually. It has something we've pissed. Well, and it was kind of a gradual ramp up, and then all of a sudden this shit just hit the fan. You had your tweet complaining about it, rightfully so, because nobody had props up and nobody had props with anything over $50. And then All of a sudden it was like, all right, a couple places here, a couple places there. The legal books started to go nuts. And then Circa came and slapped it on the table with, big limits on everything. And now it feels like now there's like a floodgate. It's the market is fully open for business on this. So I guess let's kind of remember this, like somewhere in the 2-week to 10-day range is where it really, I think maybe getting to know it's silly to say this because we talk about how to read the NFL market, understanding when limits go up, understanding when certain actors enter the market. Like this is only once a year, but this is still useful information. If you're looking to get down bigger, you should know you're not going to be able to place some of these bets 3 weeks out. It's 10 to 14 days from the draft. That's kind of when everything does ramp up, and you got to realize it's things might move. You might not be able to get the positions you want, but would you rather have, a smaller edge at a tenth of the stake or a medium edge or a smaller edge at your full stake? You kind of have to make some decisions based on that. And it would be nice for it to be Fields, but if it were Lance, I guess at least it's not Mac. And, money aside, I guess it would just feel to be good to be right about it not being Mac, because we've argued with a few people about this.
Sure.
Sure. Just brain equity.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about something real quick. So it is, and I saw it again with the Field stuff last week. There is an information cycle overreaction to seeing prices change that does not reflect reality, right? You remember how easy it was to move lines at 5 dimes?
Yeah,
because they allowed rebets and the limits were low, and they had just an algorithm that was basically if you bet blank at the limit, then it moved blank cents, and you could sit there and just boom, 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 boom on hot dog props. Or
until you're out of money, you can just do it until it was
there and move right. And is someone going to do that without meaningful information? Probably not. But it takes so little money to move these information markets that sometimes it is off. You will catch some overreactions. You will. And similarly, like Andy has mentioned 1 billion times, and I have mentioned 1 billion times, and you should etch this as rule number 1 in your gambling portfolio. If you make rules, shop around for price, because there is no Don Bets odd screen for draft props, which means everything that these guys are doing, hanging new props, adjusting existing props, is all manual hard work, where they got to go in there and kind of keep an eye on what everybody else has got. If somebody's getting hit one place and they move that line, they got to do it all manually. It's not all automated the way it is with a normal NFL game in the Don Best screen. So you can absolutely shop around. You can find arbitrage galore if you feel like it, although the limits aren't high enough to really make that worth your while, I wouldn't guess. But realistically,
more of trying to hit middles,
yeah, sure.
Because if you have reasonable juice on both sides, you are looking at some 20 to 1 kind of 20 or a little less if you can get minus 15. But yeah, there are some ways to get 20 to 1 or better if you can mix an over under with some sort of prop, like you had suggested earlier on the timeline. And yeah, I did see that too, not in Virginia. There are some states that aren't allowing us to bet on the draft, and that's I guess Minnesota's one of them. I drive to Iowa if I want to bet on DraftKings. So yeah. Pennsylvania as well. So hopefully by next year they get some of that stuff sorted out and figure out that you're just losing a bunch of handle by not letting people bet on this. Go ahead, let us do it. Hot dog contest drafts, put them on the board.
Yep. The other kind of point I wanted to mention with all this, besides the fact that these are low limit information markets that get moved around with relatively sometimes fake out action, sometimes real action, and really you can't read into Fields going plus 350, number 3 overall, to minus 150 and say that it's a done deal. That's literally just we were pushing the number around.
Closing line value, and the market hasn't closed yet, so it's not closing line value, but line value, or however you want to say it. It's like we've said in the past, it's a spectrum.
Of course,
it matters very, very much on an NFL side. It matters very, very little on a prop. you can't say it doesn't matter at all. But some of these props, say feather touch, $100, it's going to move the line. $100 from one person moves the line. So you can't say like, oh man, the implied probability went from this to this. Like, yeah, some of these auto line movers are set pretty tight, hair triggers on these to get them to move. So it's good. It's never bad to see it move your way.
Yeah,
but it's not like the certainty you get with a major market.
Do you remember when Kawhi was a Spur and he was like on the market for being traded?
Yeah.
And 5 Dimes was the only like offshore that hung a market on what will his next team be. And then like one afternoon with $100 limits, somebody went in there and hit Phoenix Suns like 10 times. And it went from 12 to 1 to minus 300.
That was the day I opened a new bookmaker account that day. It was bookmaker that did it.
No, was it? I thought it was Dimes. Somebody was manipulating at Dimes and then betting higher limits.
Yeah, bookmaker went from like 28 to 16, and however long it took somebody to refresh the page every time.
Somebody was.
It's silly, like.
They were using $1,000. They manipulated the shit out of that market, and people who like are kind of in the media space were like taking screenshots of the 5 Dimes odds screen, and they were like, "This looks real. Kawhi to the Suns. It's happening. Here we go." Like it was. It's a lot of some things will be interpreted that way, and it's wild, and just be cognizant of that. There are other ones, and again, like my other kind of major read on the draft market in general is some things are coming into greater focus, big time, especially with that Circa odds list, because the Circa odds list, they went to the trouble of giving you 100 players. So there's way more of sort of the fabric of the draft now laid out, and they're taking $1,000 limits there. And they took a ton of action early, man. Some of those numbers moved big time. Yeah. And you can just look up and down the card on the opener and you see, well, who's the 6th quarterback? Looks like Trask. What's his number? They opened it at 77. So then it's like, wait, if a fair over-under for Trask is 77, and it's probably not, it's probably something higher than that. So maybe let's bet the over there. But let's just say a fair over-under for Trask is 77, then over-under on 5.5 quarterbacks in the first round, under should be like minus 1,000, maybe more. And, we talked to Benjamin last week about the draft, and he gave us that same sort of sentiment as well, which is that like, no, the 6th quarterback is like so clearly and obviously on a different stratosphere from a talent standpoint that, no team is going to give up massive amount of future draft capital to go up there and get him just for the option of a 5th round, because they don't intend to start him. They're going to use him as a backup or a project, which means he's going to go late 2nd, early 3rd. So
the 5th round, it gets thrown around, or the 5th-year option gets thrown around a lot. And yes, it's exciting on someone who is in that 25 to 40 range. Then it becomes like, oh, we could reach for this guy. He's going to go in the first 10 picks tomorrow. Like, then it doesn't feel so bad. The trade-off is there. But when a guy legitimately is a 3rd, 4th round talent, there's no reason to reach up for somebody like that. So yeah, I think it might be a long gap between quarterbacks.
Under 5.5 quarterbacks, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Get what you can get.
You on that.
Similarly, the only other one that I think is pretty clearly coming into focus as like a free roll. We talked about the Jamar Chase under 6 being a free roll, and that holds. That holds solid, because now it is looking we're at like 50-50 that Chase Sewell goes pick 5. You would say? I think we're looking at
coin toss.
It's increasingly unlikely that 4th overall pick is available via trade. Especially if it's Lance who slides past the 3. I still contend that because Lance was a 1-year starter in FCS, moving into position to draft him via trade is infinitely riskier, and your job security is that much more under scrutiny if you give up a ton of assets for Lance. That's not to say that he won't ultimately be a clear top 3 quarterback out of this class, maybe 2. Like, that's entirely possible. He may end up being the 2nd best. But the point of the matter is, at this moment, if you're a GM and you give up the future for a 1-year starter in FCS, like, the clock all of a sudden has started. The clock has started on your job.
You talked about this last week. We talked about this off air. You talked about this just a little in the chats too. Like, for somebody to make that move, you have to be in such a secure position within your franchise, within your front office, with the owner, the ownership, the whole front office, the coaching staff. Like, everybody has to be so secure. And that's just not the case for a lot of these teams that could be trading up at the 4. Like, there's nobody that meets those criteria that could go like, we're going to get Lance. We're moving up to get Lance. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's happening.
Belichick,
I'm
the guy, and that's now a quarterback that's not ready to win now. So why would he do that?
Exactly. Like, if you're Belichick, you wait, see how Mac plays out.
Lance might fall in your lap.
Yeah, there's a decent chance Lance could fall.
Yeah, if it is, if you told me that the 4th quarterback doesn't go till the Patriots at pick 15, I'm not shocked. I could see Lance slide to the Pats at 15 and Jones slide to the Bears at 20. That's a very realistic outcome here.
What a coup for the Bears!
Oh, wouldn't it be?
I'm not a big Mac Jones guy, but
that works, right?
That helps. God, you know what sucks about that?
What's that?
That just like, what if Mac wins the competition and plays half decent, 7-9 season?
Yeah.
Well, no, but like, let's say that a 7-10, 8-9 season, like an okay season. Everyone's like, oh, this rookie's pretty good. Like, you're just getting another year of that front office coach combo, of
course.
And all you did was get another mid-round pick,
of course. You got a guy with the ceiling who's 15 in the league, probably.
But you have some upside, I guess. You'd be like, oh, maybe he takes that second step forward. So
yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so we talked about how Chase at under 6 was a free roll. Still feel strongly about that.
Yes.
The other major free roll that exists out there right now is over 18 offensive players. Are you with me on this?
So I played, and I put this on the podcast on Brown Bag Bets the other morning. I played over 17.5 at -190. And then I went back and I was shopping it around a little more. And they had under 14.5 defensive players for -150, which, first of all, that doesn't jive. Like, there's not going to be a first-round kicker, punter, whatever, a long snapper, what have you. It should just be all offensive, defensive players. You add those two numbers up, you get 32, So there's, like, I had to go look. I'm like, is there some dumb comp pick they're counting, or what are we doing here? But so, yeah, look, double check things like that. Double check correlated reversed markets like that, where they have like over and under 17.5 offensive players and over under 14.5 defensive players are the same market.
Yes,
they shouldn't even offer them both. They're the same market unless somebody really thinks there's a kicker that's coming. But like, go look at some of that stuff, because the 14.5 under is the same as the 17.5 over, and it was 40 cents cheaper. So
here's the important thing.
But yeah, I'm down. 18 is a play even right now. I think
it's a free roll, and it's priced close to 50-50. The price has not gotten out of control on this yet, so it's still bettable. The reason I say it's a free roll is like that 18. The push probability of 18 is big. It could land on 18. I can 100%, I can 100% see this happening. We're talking about 5 quarterbacks are going round 1. We're talking about 6 offensive linemen. We're talking about 5 wide receivers. That's 16. 1 tight end. That's 17. There's going to be an 18th player, either a 7th offensive lineman, a 6th wide receiver, or a running back. That gets you to 18. Any other surprise beyond that, and you're going to be at 19 and you get a win. But if you can, I don't mind laying the juice on -7 on 17.5. If you can find that still, it's harder to find, but I do think over 18 is a flat out free roll. And you know what the best part about that's going to be? The first 9 picks could be offense.
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's a decent chance this cashes by like pick 24. I think there is going to be a defensive run at the end.
Yeah.
And like, literally the last 5, 6, 7 picks could all be defense, and it won't matter. Like, you could have, it isn't going to be like waiting for Cesar Ruiz, who like that last offensive lineman. Like, all right, who are you get? I couldn't believe it was him, first off. But very, very exciting. Because I think this could cash nice and early.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, even if you are sweating it, I got great news for you. Pick 31, Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to take a lineman. Pick
Yeah.
32, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to take some skill position player or a lineman. So offense comes off the board at the end of that round. Or somebody trades up into the first round to get one of the amazing wide receivers that's still left. Like that's entirely possible too. In general, we've seen the market is trending up for guys like what's Tony's first name from Florida?
Kadavian?
Kadarius?
Kadarius. That sounds right.
Yeah. Tony is trending up everywhere I've seen. Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech, trending down everywhere I've seen because of the back injury. Some couple other interesting notes. There is not consensus on who the fourth. There's not, you didn't even spell it right. It's Toney. That's his last name is Toney.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I know, but this is the band.
Yeah, that's the band. Yeah. So he's the fourth Tony.
Anniversary.
He's the fourth Tony. We've heard pretty solid connections that Steelers are into Najee Harris now. Ben told us about it last week. Other people have been hot on that this week. He's probably your first running back overall at like pick 24. There may be another running back that sneaks into round one. I've got my eyes on a couple of teams and a couple of notes there. A
running back is just gravy for this bet.
Yeah, it is.
This can cash without a running back.
It can. I 100% agree. There's no consensus on who the fourth best wide receiver is. That cuts positively for the over wide receivers bet because that means that, some team is going to have, they're going to have Bateman as number 4 on their wide receiver with a gap between him and number 5. And he could be their 6th, 7th guy on the, 6th, 7th wide receiver to be taken. Some team could look at that and be like, well, that's our guy. We had him 4th overall. We had him as a top 20 pick. And here we are at pick 29. We're taking him. Right. Like this is best value plus what we need, like that, those kind of situations I think can open themselves up for wide receivers in this draft, possibly for DNs too, just because there's not really a consensus on who the best edge rusher is. So there's going to be a decent amount of D linemen that get taken between pick 15 and pick 25. But it doesn't really change my opinion on offensive players overall. There's going to be a bunch. There's a bunch of legit good offensive linemen in this draft.
And there's teams that have multiple needs that are all at offense where they can go, well, we're just going to take what falls to us, but it's going to be an offensive player, whether they go lineman or skill position.
Yeah. Yeah. So over 6.5 offensive linemen, Josh. That's going to be, that's
a tough one.
Quick, this is the thing is that this is a coin flip.
There's so many better bets on the board.
It's not going to be 5 and it's not going to be 8. It's going to be 6 or 7. So if you're being asked to lay a price, I would try to attack a different market, like over offensive players. Like this is a great example. You can't get over 4.5 wide receivers anymore. That ship has sailed. That price is long gone. But you can still bet offensive players over, and then you capture not just the wide receivers 5 or 6 going, the offensive linemen 6, 7 going, but a running surprise running back gets picked. So there are a lot of ways you can affect value out of that, I think. So that's where that's mostly what I've been up to this weekend betting wise. So yeah, you want to talk about the market a little bit? Pivot here to our evergreen topic.
I think so. Yeah, let's get into that because it's just something that I've been seeing. I don't know. You see it all the time. A lot of these evergreen topics. We've done closing line value. We've done touts. We've done the affiliate model. Like it's stuff that gets argued about on Twitter and gambling Twitter a lot. And this is one I've seen a lot lately. It's not just the reverse line movement. We'll get into what the actual definition of reverse line movement is, but people using bet splits saying, the money is, 80% of the money's on this side and 40% of the bets, and people using bet splits and reverse line movement, and not only looking at bet splits and where the money is landing, but doing it at certain books where they probably shouldn't be. And then, the whole, I think kind of a cousin of that is fishy lines, trap lines, Vegas setting an opener where you don't think it should be because, they're just trying to get money on one side, which, it does happen. But for the most part, a line is set where it's set for a reason. and usually the reason isn't to snap you in a trap. So, yeah.
Oh, they're not trying to get me.
They're not trying to get you specifically. No, I mean, there are times that a bookmaker, a risk manager will take a position, is what we say, I guess, where said, well, we're fine taking all the action we want on the other side of this, and just go ahead. We've got it set at a number where we think it's fine. They can take heavy positions from a lot of people, and maybe they would move it if somebody very specific came in with a big bet, someone where they actually respected their action. But for the most part, I mean, there are times they take positions.
I would agree with that. And you know why they can take positions is because they have plus 110.
Yeah.
They have margin on their side. Margin. They can play with the margin. And that, if you think, if you don't think hard about what the bookmakers are paying they're making bets against you. Honestly, they're writing out, they write a bet again, they write you a bet. They are betting the opposite side, and they're doing it at plus 110. And the margin, they only have
to break even at 47.6%. Imagine what you could do if you only had to win 47.6% of your bets. Well, you could let a bunch of randoms decide what you're betting on every night anyway, just like they do.
Yes. Yes, that's a good way to put it. But yeah, no, I think fundamentally, the idea of reading markets and understanding the market is supremely important to being a long-term winner. I would almost say that I prize that skill set over fundamentals of data science, statistical understanding, and math. Because if you understand how the market works, then you almost don't need the rest.
There are people that do that.
There are.
I mean,
I've done that for long portions of the season where my data wasn't up to snuff, and I was like, fuck it, I still want to bet. And I'm talking about NBA, like, okay, fuck it, I'll just figure out what the market is power rating these teams, and we'll look out for some weird examples where it's high low, and take those sides. I've absolutely done that.
And I mean, without even getting into screen cleaners and just steam chasers and people that they're for sure they are not handicapping games. They're not running power numbers. They are looking at one place, and then they're looking somewhere else. It moves a little slower, and they just said, well, I know which way the market is heading because this other book is a market-making book, and this book is a horrible offshore or a shitty PPH that doesn't keep up. And I can sit here and bet something 20 cents better every single day, and I'm just going to slowly stack some nickels and make there are people that do that. They might not even be able to name players on the sport they're betting. I mean, it's a thing.
I mean, it's tough because you got to sit there and stare at the screen. You can't go to the bathroom, it's difficult. Yeah. But I think, realistically, it's important to point out that understanding when the market is moving and why is a little bit of an art.
Yeah.
But it does give you incredible insight, in my opinion, at least, into who the market makers show value on, which you can always reverse engineer. I mean, we have some very, very smart friends in the betting space. And if you see some of these guys rip like a week of just face melting wins, what's one of the first things that you think of when you see that? You're like, I should kind of think of reverse engineering that. Like, what are they seeing? Right. And the same applies to the market in general. And you can apply this sort of thinking to the NFL. 100% you can apply it. Like if a team is consistently getting action when the limits go up and the market is moving in their favor for 2 weeks, and they get rewarded, and then you see the third week come around and there hasn't been an adjustment to the power number. They open another soft number on a given team. You can almost I don't want to say with certainty, but with high degree of confidence, you can expect whoever market makers really had a read on this team being undervalued is going to go right back to the well in the right circumstance. Let's say, take away it's their third week in a row on the road, and or some key player got hurt, right? Like or they're coming up against a team that has finally bottomed out and is is finally a buy low, right? Like there are some extenuating circumstances, but for sure, if you get a good read on the market and understand why teams are being faded and when those moves are happening, and try to sort it all out into a reflection of what a market fair prices are for teams, you're going to be in much better situation long term. All of this is really just a setup to say, if you know nothing but what the current price is, what the old price was, and what the betting percentages are, you are not in an advantaged situation to make a wager at that time. Because why?
Well, not only so, like anyone who doesn't understand it, maybe anyone who doesn't understand the term reverse line movement, or has seen it somewhere in gambling Twitter, or somebody spewing it, saying like, oh, they'll say, wow, I have the stats from DraftKings or FanDuel. I don't want to pick on anyone specific, but any legal book, let's just say, they have the stats like Vikings are playing the Bears, and it says 80% of the money's on the Vikings. 75% of the tickets are on the Vikings. The Vikings open -3.5. It's now Vikings -3. All the money, all these bets, everyone's, let's just say FanDuel. I'm going to say FanDuel just to use one book. Everybody at FanDuel is betting on the Vikings, but the line moved the other way, reverse line movement. And it is goofy, because I would think, and we'll get to this, in the long run, that reverse move is probably the right move. And if you, like, more often than not, that was the way to go.
No.
But if you bet it,
it was the right move. It was.
I know you stomped on my.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That is the right move. But was Bears? You're thinking, I should bet Bears +3. No, Bears +3.5 was the move. Like, that's the thing. Once you do see something like this, you're being reactive. Like, you're being 100% reactive to a market. And it again, it's no different than the bets being 50-50 and the line moving that way. Yeah. Like, in all reality, the bet splits at a retail book in America don't matter.
Even if they're 100% true and accurate, if you had even granular, nuanced information of account number, bet it this much at this time and this minute moved, it doesn't help. That doesn't inform anything. Like, when the number is gone, it is because the bookmaker decided, when the limits are higher on Sunday morning, I only want to be writing Bears +3s. Yep. I will not write you a flat 3.5 on Sunday, because some information came into their orbit that told them that the correct line was 3, right? And it could be they got some inventory information confirmed higher, whatever, or it could have been like, this guy who's been destroying them on Bears bet the Bears again, right? Like, there it could be as soft as, well, this guy's on a heater, he bet the Bears again, I don't want to write any more 3.5s. Like, let's just move it. Or it could be something more meaningful. Like, it could be any range of possibilities, but it really doesn't help you make an informed decision on what to bet once the number's already gone. It's totally noise. It's totally noise.
Well, and truthfully, a lot of these, and again, we won't pick on anyone specific, and I am proud of a couple of these books. They are going to fire up their own risk rooms. But, I mean, there are numerous books that are just using a line service. Some company, let's say from like Sweden or something. There's books. There are multiple. You feel like, I got a bunch of different outs. Well, it turns out there's a bunch of the legal books that had been, especially from the beginning, were using the same odds provider. So it's like, I'm shopping. It's these two always have the same price. Well, yeah, they're using the same odds provider. Like, it doesn't matter if you shop here, shop there. They're getting their prices from the same people. And those odds providers aren't working with any sort of risk room for the most part. Unless something in their room is telling them we need to do something. For the most part, they're watching other places to decide where to move numbers. And it is not where a bunch of people from New Jersey are betting into a legal book. That's not what's moving an NFL market, because they are not taking, and again, the retail books definitely have their place in the market, but they're not taking $100,000 bets from sharp actors on an NFL Sunday, an NFL side, and $15K on a total. So they are, these books are going to move based on action, basically, that is getting placed elsewhere. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. That's their business model. And it works because they know, like, hey, guess what? Bet Chris, Pinnacle, wherever, just got hit hard and it went and moved. We're moving too. It doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter how many bets we have on the other side. We will now give them a better number if they want it, because the money that mattered came in over here, and we have to move it to the Bears.
Yeah, all that reverse line movement is telling you is that the book will no longer write the correct price, or it will no longer write an advantage price. They've determined blank is an advantage price. We're not going to write that anymore. Now that limits are going up, now that we're getting this flurry of activity on Sunday morning, and everybody's willing betting both sides, and we found the quote unquote, we found the correct price, whatever. They found the correct price for them and the action that they want to write. That's really what it comes down to. And it's not to say lines don't continue to move through the weekend. Sometimes Sunday live movement is wild and crazy, and I can't ever really tell you that I totally understand why things move on Sunday mornings, because I've kind of gotten to this point where I feel like anyone who's actually making any actionable wagers on Sundays is like, God bless them. Like, they have the luckiest coin in the world that they're flipping or something. But that's fine. Maybe somebody out there is doing this. Somebody probably is doing this. Somebody very smart is probably doing this. But I can't wrap my brain around betting into a closing line for the NFL, and considering how efficient the market is and how liquid it is. So that's fine. That's kind of the other key point here. It is also worth kind of pointing out that a ton of this discussion should be predicated on the size of the market, as with everything, right? Like, as with the draft props we were talking about off the top, like, those were low limits. Those were small pools. Like, one person can have outsized influence if they feel like it. Like, that's absolutely real. Similarly, if you're looking at overnight line movement and percentages, what's that telling you?
I mean, that's I don't want to use a bad word, but that's the horse hitting the easy, soft numbers. And I mean, that stuff is going to be lopsided. And again, like, oh man, especially take something like college basketball. Oh man, like, all the money's on one side. Yeah, it moved 4 points. Like, again, you don't want UNC Greensboro +8. You wanted them +10 or 12, 11, anywhere in there. Like, it's not informing you of something you should do. It's informing you of something you should have done, which is a whole different discussion. We can do a whole different day. Is like, I don't know, have we ever done one on back testing or taking market data and using it in that? Like, you've done a little with NBA, but I feel like you've just done some cool graphics. I'm not sure if we've really delved face first into that and talked about, like, because that might be, in your brain, you're sitting here thinking, when I say that's not something you should be doing, it's something you should have already done. Well, if you can start to take that information, that's the key here. Take that information, use it to predict things.
Yeah. So here's, I guess, the best example. Like, what I've done, I've tried to do two things in the past with looking at closing line value and market movement and synthesizing that into a betting approach. One thing I tried to do was just say, okay, well, can we find a pattern in what the consistent live moves are, like the big ones, like that are not injury related? Like, is there some preceding information that is going to tell you that, okay, this team is going to catch the action, they're going to move, like that sort of analysis? And I've found nothing there, like absolutely nothing. Like, there is no predicting, like, oh, well, yeah, it turns out they had EPA per play passing this week, then they get bet the next week. No, it's nothing like that. There literally is a very weak correlations with any kind of statistical profile you can come up with for that.
I think just getting a feel for a market, and it's going to be a case where you're going to do something like what I just said, taking that and realizing, like, hey, this team got bet 3 points against this team. And then you're dealing with two data points really there. Like this team got bet. Technically, the other team got faded. It might be 100% one. It might be 100%. It might be any range in between the two. You have to take that. And I think you did. Let's say you just take a league with like 30 teams, like a normal one of the professional leagues. Like I think you do a bunch of stuff like that, and you're going to find mostly noise on 28 teams.
Yeah.
And you're going to find maybe some really short-term signal on one or two teams where it's like, hey, this team is underpriced a little bit right now. And then you have to look like, and again, it turns into the same thing. Did I miss it? Or a team that's been bet up a few times where you see like they're getting bet up and they probably shouldn't be. Like you're going to find some signal. This was what sucks about delving into some of this data is going through tons and tons of data with the expectation of finding one or two little things, and neither of them, likely not being like long-term massive edges. There's no pot at the end of the rainbow. Like, oh shit, I figured out the NBA.
No, but thinking about this stuff does help you 100%. And I guess here's
for sure.
I was going to tell you, I did two things looking at kind of market movement and trying to like quantify it. The first was literally like, is there some predictive signal as to when a team is going to start becoming hot in terms of a betting, like hot from a backing, the market is behind them, right? Or against them. And that was impossible for me to truly suss out. Maybe somebody out there smarter than me can figure that out. The other thing that I did though, which I thought was a lot more helpful and instructive, was the velocity of the market catching up to a team being better or worse than expected. There are lots of signal for that.
Yeah, public sentiment.
There are a couple of teams that if they play well once in a big spot, like the market, bang, upgrade, bang, downgrade. Like that, there are a couple that are, the velocity is high. Think about the Dallas Cowboys last season. It took all of one upset over the Vikings for the market to move like 3 points on them for Thanksgiving Day. Yeah. Like that was instantaneous.
Football team.
It went from, but that was like a wild one because it literally, that went from like the Cowboys are done, it's over, they're never going to win. They beat the Vikings, they're going to destroy the Washington football team.
Was that Washington? And then it was Houston. Was it Houston Lions? Is that what the other game was?
Houston Lions was the other one. Yeah.
Those were actually fun games. I was doing periscopes out in the woods.
Yeah, we won a lot of money on the Houston Texans that day.
That's a good call. But I think we did like straight up second half.
I lost track. That was one of my better. I was pretty drunk on Thanksgiving. It was like
a money line, just straight up like
aggressively.
Well, I think when we drink, we get aggressive with the second half. So we say like, we're not going to take the +2 here. We're just going to bet them straight up.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think that's actually an advantage in the second half. But yeah, that's a good point too. And you think of like Miami a few years back, like you start looking at a market, and especially you talk public sentiment. Public sentiment can mean Twitter, TV, radio, podcasts. Like everyone's like, oh my God, like the biggest talking point of the first couple of weeks was like, how big is this spread going to be against Miami? Are we going to get to like 4 touchdowns? Like I'm here on Outkick the Coverage. We're talking Miami, just like everybody was talking about it. It's like, hey, guess what? Eventually, I don't care how shitty this team is. They are going to take this too far. And they did.
Yeah, of course.
But by the end of the season, I think they'd won a few games.
Yeah, but specifically to the velocity, think also about what a winner of the John was with us on Thanksgiving.
The late one, my God,
because there was no night game because COVID got canceled. The Steelers Ravens.
Oh yeah, we just did a random one. Yeah.
So we just answered Q&A, and the Owls attacked. The other point I was going to bring up, think back to like San Francisco, the first time they played the Rams. You remember like the preceding game, they just looked like absolute dog shit against the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And the market downgraded them from a look ahead of -3 to opening +3.5. And it was like, there's literally like, it's too inelastic. Like that can't be, like the true rating for that team cannot be that big of a swing in 1 week when the only change from week to week was maybe random wide receiver got hurt. So that was another example of where you can tell if the velocity is too high or too slow a team that, like 2 years ago, I want to say towards the end of the season, the Titans were bet on every single week.
Yep.
12, 13.
Well, because Tractor Cito in the cold, like he was
Tractor Cito
late season.
You can ascribe whatever narrative you want.
Defenses are worn down, Drew. Like he's going to run all over them. And that's
reality,
when
Tannehill was playing out of his mind.
Tannehill,
yeah.
Their red zone percentage was like 200%.
They scored 42 touchdowns and 28 trips.
And the best part, the overs was the play because their secondary had the issues again
true.
every year. True. It's like, man, if they're going to score every time they get down there and their defense sucks,
sure,
like, over 49, give it here.
Sure. But what you were seeing was, in my opinion, at least, a pretty clear signal that somebody out there who was a market maker, waiting for the limits to go up, hitting the bejesus out of the Titans every single week, because the market wide rating on them was about 0, and that person was sitting there looking at there like, nope, it should be 2. And every week they opened at 0. Until they adjust this thing to 2. I'm going back to the well. Going back to the well, and it was extremely profitable. Like they covered every one of those weeks, and there was someone out there who was a market maker who was betting a lot of money on those games and really did quite well. So there are certain teams where the market is resistant. It's slow. We can't believe this. I just can't believe it, right? New York Knicks, great example. This year, it's still happening in the NBA. People are still a little hesitant to give the Knicks credit, despite all of the proof that you can now find that this is not a fluky run for them. They are a good regular season team. I have given up. I waved the white flag on this a month ago. Like, the Knicks are a strong regular season team. But, a lot of times the preseason win total can anchor the market in the wrong place, and it can take a while for it to catch up. That's one time. That's one. Yeah, sure.
It's like Dallas you talked about last year too. It's like it was supposed to be. I mean, the conversation we had about Dallas before the season was you and I arguing which was the better bet, McCarthy to win Coach of the Year or Dallas to be the highest scoring team in the league.
Sure.
And I remember. I mean, injuries obviously played a big part of that. But man, like that defense was worse than anyone could have possibly imagined. We didn't think it was going to be good. No, Drew. Like we shit on that defense.
It was worse. Yeah, it was even worse.
Jalen should be out of the league. He's been being paid like that. My God, like that defense was so pathetic at times, and people just still like, oh, I talked myself into Andy Dalton one time. Like,
same here. Against the Cardinals. And
I've
got a great number. That thing went across 0, and they were not competitive in that game. Nope. Not competitive at all. The offensive line was a problem with Andy Dalton, it turns out. The realistically though, some teams the market is very quick to react on. A lot of times that has to do with preseason expectation. I can think of another good example in the NBA besides the Knicks. The Toronto Raptors were expected to win 42 games this season. Guess what? It ain't happening. In fact, this might not get there. This is like a 400-ish team, turns out. They started out, though, like 2-10 or something like that, win-loss off the top of my head. And the minute they had one good performance, though, the market was like, we're in. Here comes the regression back to what we expected. And no, they had to lose more. They lost more on the Raptors until probably about the All-Star break, where people kind of finally capitulated and stopped backing the Raptors. It took a long fucking time.
It makes me think of the Yankees right now. And this is a completely different boat because it's the MLB season where there is, 162 games.
Sure.
Lot more room to make up for it.
Yep.
We've seen teams do this. The Nationals were in a deep hole before their run a couple years back. But like at a certain point, like it's going to flip where the Yankees are the worst team in the AL right now. They have the worst record in the AL. They're favored to win the AL. We are not that deep into the season, but there's going to be a tipping point where they're going to have to move that line a little. Like, all right, that we can't have them as favorites anymore. We are. I'm trying to look how deep. Like, yeah, we're like 50. We're 10% through the season.
Yeah.
So we're like 10. It's still I'm fine with them. They don't want to. There's 140 games left. The books don't want to get underwater on Yankees tickets. But, I mean, there's some people that are saying like this team is kind of a mess. Like there might be a spot to back it the other way, and that's the thing too. Like if you think a market is doing this, like they don't want to take a bunch of Yankees money, be the other side. Take somebody else to win the AL. Find a no ticket. There's always some ways to blast around this team and be the book essentially.
Do you have a lean on who's undervalued in the AL out of curiosity? Since you're on this example, I was asking myself this exact question today.
I kind of like the Angels, man.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't hate them. I haven't watched a ton of baseball. The AL Central is a mess. Everybody's decent, except maybe and even the Tigers. The Tigers have a couple decent starters, and they also got to play Houston when they're after their shot. So, like that sucked. But no, I mean there's like 3.5 good teams in the AL Central. Tampa's good, Toronto's good, Boston's playing very well right now. And then like Houston, Oakland, LA, like it's wide open. The AL, it should be, and this is a good point. Like their starting staff is not good. Like Cole's very, very good, and if Cole gets roughed up, you're gonna have a bad week. Like if he doesn't pitch good, you're gonna have a bad week. So I think finding like a no ticket on them maybe is the best way to go.
I like backing teams though that have bats and relief pitching, which they do. I mean, I think ultimately we
can't
need
buy
the
the pennant
correct
unless you're the Dodgers.
Get the low point. Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
That's what I'm thinking. I think you could take the no and find an arbitrage eventually.
Get it later. Get a better price later. Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Or if you don't believe they're improving, just keep your original position.
Okay. But I guess back to our central thesis, you'll hear people say stuff like, I want to be on the same side as Vegas on this one. And in the absolute best, let's say you have the best case scenario and you are at the window right before they move the number. And they're going to, because the guy that just walked up and to make his bets, every time he makes a bet, they move the number. So they're about to. And you hear him he calls out this team, but he can't come up with the rotation number. And he's sitting there, and you get your bet in that interim. And you're going to be on his side, right? It's still not an advantage play to the tune of what the book is doing, because you are still paying minus 110. Right. So even if you think you are on the same side as Vegas and ultimately at the same widely available line, you are not on at the same price. You are almost certainly, whatever the hold is, farther away. So I think the conception that they don't build hotels in the desert for nothing and Vegas always wins and Vegas knows and all of that stuff is very convenient narrative nonsense. And aligning yourself with Vegas perfectly is impossible, because you're almost always betting into minus 110 while they're betting into plus 110.
Yeah, you don't get that same advantage. Again,
yeah.
If we got to bet in the plus 110 all the time, I probably would just do that more.
So let's take this to the next level then. So what's the point? Why do they produce those numbers? Why do people talk about it? I could think of one reason.
It's just easy media. Well, it's easy media to come up with.
It's easy media to come up with, and it incentivizes people who otherwise might not make a bet to make a bet. Like there is an enormous economy. There's an economy centered around providing people whatever cognitive bias, whatever synapse solving piece they need to go make that bet. Like that's the whole point. Like they want volume. They want the action. They want to write the action because they're writing it at plus 110. And so anything that they can put in front of you, be it stats, be it trends, be it percentages of the betting public that they have that they have accrued for a given sporting event is all designed and put in front of you and reported on and talked about to entice you to go make a bet one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at.
And it works.
Tough.
It works great.
It does work.
And you know what else? What in the same spirit, when it's Super Bowl week and they're like, or March Madness week, and they're like, our biggest action is 500K on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Our biggest action is 100K on the Chiefs. Right? That also, that's not put out there in the world designed to get you to place a bet when you wouldn't have otherwise. That is to anchor you on, well, what's a reasonable bet size? Well, this guy's betting 500,000. This guy's betting, I can't bet that much, but what's the point of betting 50? Like, what's the, I'm comfortable betting 50 or 100, but like, it bleeds into your brain that like, oh no, staking should be big numbers, right? And or FOMO, like the parlay stuff. It's a FOMO trick. Someone telling you that, hey, this guy hit a lottery ticket parlay that was 15 legs, that $20 pays $1 million. That is a FOMO trick. It is specifically designed and reported in a way that gets you, the player, to decide to play a bunch of parlays because, well, I'm good at this, but I'm just as good as this nobody. I have a good feeling. Oh shoot, man, I remember that one time I went 10-0 that one day. Like I should have parlayed him. Right, like that. All of that stuff is psyops, really. And in the same breath, like, do I care that they're out there doing that and reporting it? Not really. I find it kind of interesting. I listen to that sort of stuff.
I mean, it is where it's where the space is right now. Like, hey, guess what? We have a sportsbook sponsor.
Yes,
that's where we're at. It's a legal book. We encourage you to bet there, and we hope you do it wisely. We do hope you do it wisely. But those. I mean, it's the availability bias, like or availability, however you want to put it, like
heuristic.
Yeah, availability heuristic. I think it's like when you hear about a shark attack on the news, like people that's exciting. That's going to make the news.
Where was it?
They're not going to. Well, I'm just saying, like, well, you'd live next to the beach. I worry about you. But the thing
I saw
is, like,
baby shark yesterday out in the bed.
Like in the song. But anyway, back to the shark thing. Like when you watch the news, or let's say it's not even like your evening news, it's like some blockbuster thing, and like, oh, you got to watch this online video of the shark. Like they don't do this. A shark attack in off the coast of Long Beach takes down Drew Dinsick, and his legs in bad. He's in surgery right now.
Knock on wood,
like
that doesn't happen.
After they do that, they're not going to say, hey, and this happened, but we're going to let you know the odds of being attacked by a shark are 1 in 642 million or whatever it is. They don't. There's no reason to announce that. Why would you do that? And the same thing, to an even greater extent, when they put out this, hey, here's this guy's parlay that he hit, they're not going to announce, yeah, like how much money he won, 40 grand. But we made $600,000 on parlays this week, just like that, and his 40 grand doesn't matter to us.
Dude,
like
you know what?
You're never gonna see that. Yeah.
Thank you for saying this, because you totally reminded me of another key point here, which is that another reason that a book might be willing to take lopsided action on a given NFL game instead of moving the number, micro-moving the price, so they got 50-50 balanced action. Another reason that they might have lopsided action is because they don't really care about one contest when their hold on a given weekend is 20% because so many people have teasers and parlays.
Yeah.
And that like that margin of error that you have as a bookmaker when you are getting NFL, college football, teaser and parlay action is massive. It's massive. They don't have to be the pinnacles of the world and have the price correct to the third decimal. Like they can 100% deal with the margin of error and just kind of keep in line with the market overall and just know that at the end of the day, we're going to get all this parlay action and that's going to make us whole. So cool. Like that's why in a given NFL season of 17 weeks, soon to be 18 weeks, they can have 16 straight winning weeks or 16 out of 17 winning weeks. Like that it simply comes down to, people in the marketplace will bet into minus EV teasers and minus EV parlays at a clip that is, that's beneficial to be a sports book, really. I mean, ultimately, if you want to win long term, you should not be following reverse line movement. And if you don't have the time, patience, interest in understanding the market to the level where you can make plus EV wagers, however you want to do that, either originating or just being a savvy player, then your best bet making money in this space is go work for the sports book.
So that was a depressing ending. They're hiring though. And I know somebody got hired by DraftKings. Of
course they are, man. And that's exciting. Honestly, it's exciting that the space is growing. It's exciting that I'm optimistic that ultimately this is going to be a really, a really strong, little economy. Honestly. Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much innovation. There's a lot of competition. Ultimately, that tends to result in very it's advantageous for the players, especially if you're like us, and I'll speak for myself because I don't know what Andy's motivations are necessarily, but at the end of the day, realistically, I'm not trying to get rich doing this. I would just like to be paid a small amount to also be entertained.
I'd like to. Yeah, I said that 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. I'd like to not pay to be entertained at the level that you are entertained when you have a sports bet on an NFL game, an NBA game, a tennis match, you name it.
I said that 2 years ago. I said I would just like to. I'm not ever going to be like an AP betting, max betting across everything. I would just love to never make a deposit again. I want to never deposit. Like if I'm depositing, it's because I have a new out and I've taken money from somewhere else.
Yeah,
I would just love to never, ever, ever make a deposit into a book again. Have my bankroll at least level. Just stay in slightly above water.
Yeah.
But getting rich would be nice too.
Patrick,
what was this one? Looking forward to starting at DK Arizona. Yeah, I feel bad for I wish I knew this guy's name because I always feel bad calling him abnormally distributed. We should talk to him. He's a smart guy. The thing is, like I used to think he was a smart guy, but not getting any closing line value on those golf lines. Yikes! He could have at least told me he was max betting against Horsfield and Horsey.
NGMI, buddy. NGMI, abnormal. Not gonna make it.
Yeah, before I made a good Horsey joke, like I didn't know those were your biggest fades. I'm not betting into the. Look at that. That's a nice normal
Robert.
name.
Yeah,
call him Rob.
All right. Well. Regardless,
I almost went and slept on
Patrick. If you
I almost
just want
went
to
and
get
slept on his couch or on his floor in Colorado. Remember, he was offering that.
Oh, really?
He needed runners for the Super Bowl. He's like, you can sleep on my floor. I'm like,
that'd be
see what the wife would say about that.
Getting rich would be nice too.
Yeah.
Just buy the dip this week. I mean, we think that's probably going to get you rich a lot faster than betting on sports is going to get you rich.
Ride Doge up to 69 cents tomorrow.
If that happens, I fucking quit. I cannot. The Doge chart makes me want to freaking throw my computer out the window. I haven't been shorting it, but it's
a first story window at least.
Truly insane. It is truly insane. And the Bitcoin price action this weekend was also fucking insane, but it shook out so much leverage and washed out so many weak hands. And I think it's going to be a rough next couple of days as we oscillate wildly between 53 and 55. But by the end of this week, I think, put your rocket booster on. If funding is still low, if open interest is is several billion less than it was last week, buckle the fuck up because it's going to be a fun ride.
I don't think we could ever close the show without a little bit of Drew's reading. Hopium. It's just part of the life. Hopium. Yeah. So let's go. Yeah, let's go Bitcoin. Let's go Cope. Let's go Radium. Let's go Solana. Fuck Dogecoin.
Andy pamping his bags.
Let's just these are the things that would be cool if they went up. I'm constantly cheering for Tether to get to $2. I don't think that's happening. Someday.
It's not going to go down though.
I'm level on Tether. So, all right, let's call her a day. We'll be back. More draft talk. We'll do a whole shitload of draft stuff on Wednesday and go from there.
All right, take it easy, buddy. I was listening to somebody say who was trying to talk about like when Tether is a little over $1 or a little under $1, it is a bearish or bullish sign. I don't totally understand it, but it's never at exactly $1.
Do you know this music that's playing right now is actually under copyright somehow again? Where YouTube's saying this, it's called Supermarket Bossa Nova, and they're saying